He shouldn't do what you tell him to do or what I tell him to do. And with due respect to the morals in football, you can shove it up your backside. There isn't any.
Would you advocate that he should be allowed to do precisely what he wants to do?
Yeah, with his money.
I mean, he is one genuine winner, isn't he? Romero, World Cup winner.
Yeah, he's also a bloody pest. Got too much to say for himself. Had to be put back in line by his own manager. When Spencer says something that he doesn't like, he's not entitled to say it because he's his mate, and he shouldn't be saying this about Johnny Fisher. I'll pack it in. Grow up, the lot of you. Grow up.
Chelsea fans, Simon, we've touched on this before, we touch on it again. Now the Chelsea fans have got really involved. They've written an open letter to Premier League Chief Executive Richard Masters, calling on the Premier League to take action against Todd Boehly for his involvement in Vivid Seats. What is that? It's an American website which has been reselling match tickets for hugely inflated prices above face value. Boehly's a director and an investor in Vivid Seats, and it allows users based outside of the UK to buy and sell tickets to concerts and sporting events at high-end prices. The website is listed by the Premier League as an unauthorised ticket website. But it's not just Chelsea tickets. Vivid Seats has also been listing tickets for other clubs, including Liverpool's final home fixture of the season, for almost £20,000. I've got a list of some of the tickets on the website this morning. Arsenal Fulham on Tuesday the 1st of April. The price rises there for a ticket, the best seat, £3,278. The 3rd of April, Chelsea Tottenham. The price rises to £4,500 for a really good seat. Saturday the 5th of April, Brentford Chelsea. The price rises to £1,455. Chelsea's Supporters Trust have written to Masters, and they say, as a director of Chelsea and part owner, Mr. Boehly's connection with Vivid Seats is totally inappropriate and significantly undermines the efforts of Chelsea, the Premier League and the Metropolitan Police to combat ticket touting. This can't go on, Simon, can it? This cannot go on.
I don't know.
Surely,
I don't know.
If you were Todd Boehly, and now that this has gathered pace in terms of publicity around it, surely he's got to cut ties with Vivid Seats.
Well, look, in ticket scalping, as it's determined, I mean, Marcus Evans, with due respect, who owned Ipswich Town, owned a ticket agency, and people used to call him a ticket scalper. The fact of the matter is that these agencies exist. The validity of them will often be challenged because of the pricing policy. Are people objecting to the pricing policy, or are they objecting to the fact they've got the tickets in the first place?
Both, I think.
Well, the pricing policy is none of their business.
Why?
Because it isn't any of their business. What other people sell tickets for is entirely up to them. And if the Premier League want to involve themselves, and if Todd Boehly is in somehow, in a shape or form, as a result of his association with Vivid as a director and as an owner of a Premier League football club, is in contravention of the regulations, and I'm sure the Premier League will deal with it and deal with it appropriately. If he's not,
we've been in touch with the Premier League this morning. They're aware of it.
If he's
they
not,
will respond to the Chelsea Supporters Trust.
If he's not in contravention of the Premier League rules by some mechanism, then it becomes a moral argument.
How can he not be in contravention of the Premier League rules?
You know, with the great respect to the
you wouldn't do this, Simon, when you were owner of Palace.
With the greatest respect to the late great Maurice Watkins, who was the executive mind behind Man United, I didn't pore over every single law and rule to understand the parameters of it. But if he isn't in contravention, now there's been so many allegations about Boehly and Chelsea and what's going to happen to them, how they're going to get caught by this, what they're going to get done for this, and as yet nothing has ever stuck in terms of whether it be FFP or whatever else.
Selling the hotel back to themselves, etc.
Right? So all of these things that the so-called experts have forecast as the downfall of Chelsea have never actually manifested themselves.
I agree, but do you not concede this as a conflict of interest?
Why?
Why wouldn't it be?
Well, it's a commercial exercise. It's a commercial engine that funds Chelsea. The commercial engine that funds Chelsea is private equity money. Private equity has a diversity of investments. If one of them is a ticket agency, and ultimately the proceeds of that ticket agency come back into the family that goes back into funding Chelsea, then with respect, we start to move the argument to an argument of morality.
Premier League tickets are being sold at enormous price hikes on an unauthorised website that he part owns.
But again, unauthorised under whose jurisdiction, in which regions, to which outcome. If you're unauthorised in the UK, but there's a loophole which enables you to sell them through a foreign ownership, then ultimately the Premier League will have no sanction. If the Premier League can have a sanction, they'll deal with it. If they don't, they won't. And then it becomes a different argument, which is the argument I'm not interested in the slightest. is the morality of the argument, because the morality of football and the morality of what owners have to do to fund football clubs and the amount of money that's spent in football clubs goes out of the window on the basis of a handful of tickets being sold at a group of football fans at a football club that was 3 years ago, in existential threat. Doesn't ring my bell, I'm afraid. I understand their arguments.
So you're okay with this?
I'm neither okay with it or not okay with it. I think it's the commercial reality of the world. The fact of the matter is a football club and all of its associations are being funded, in this instance, by a group of owners that have paid $2.5 billion to buy Chelsea Football Club. 3 years ago, they had a Russian oligarch who bought the football club. Of course, is now their hero, but put them in existential threat and ultimately was run in a certain way. And his money bought and built Chelsea into the superpower that it became. I'm not sitting here and saying that football fans don't have a right to be angry about certain things.
No, sure.
But I'm not going to sit here and say a handful of tickets being sold by Todd Boehly in a business that he probably has no real involvement in on a daily basis and understanding of. And if he's wrong, he'll be sanctioned. If he's not wrong, it becomes a morality argument.
But he's bound to be wrong.
I'm not going to sit with a bunch of entitled Chelsea fans that think they're entitled to something.
Hang on a second. On his own club website, the Chelsea website, Chelsea Football Club appreciates that with tickets for our matches in high demand, unauthorised selling of these tickets is an increasing problem and one that can lead to football supporters experiencing expensive disappointment.
Well, we're going to argue about...
They're absolutely right about that.
We're going to argue
So
about the semantics
there,
of the word unauthorised.
Are there many fans, and I'm sure there are, listening to this morning, who are totally frustrated
Why Liverpool
that
tickets?
you are being priced out?
Why
the
Liverpool
tickets that you might want
Why
for
Liverpool?
the games I've just listed,
Why Liverpool
Arsenal,
tickets?
Fulham, Brighton, Villa, Chelsea, Tottenham, West Ham, Bournemouth, Palace, Brighton, Brentford, Chelsea. You're getting priced out because the tickets you want are on a website like this with a massive markup that you can't afford.
But these tickets were...
That's the bottom line.
There's also an argument that suggests these are probably premium tickets anyway, and they might not be able to afford them in the first place.
They're
Whatever
not.
the price won't be. So they're just average tickets. And some fool...
Everywhere in the stadium.
So an average ticket in the middle of nowhere behind perhaps a restricted view, some fool in America is prepared to pay £4,500 for. Good luck to them. Fair play. That's the marketplace that we're in. If the terminology unauthorised applies to this transaction, then he will have to stop doing it, or the agency that... Now, of course, Liverpool will have to stop allowing tickets to be sold through him.
Yeah.
Arsenal will have to allow tickets to stop.
The Chelsea website goes on, Simon. We wish to make clear to fans that ticket touting, scalping, is an illegal activity in the UK, and supporters should only purchase tickets from official sellers. If you purchase tickets unofficially, you'll be in possession of an invalid ticket and you'll be refused entry at the stadium. The Chelsea website should make that clear to Boehly.
But neither I or you or most of the people in this conversation are clear on the reality of whether these sales of tickets through an agency, it's an overseas agency, falls foul of that.
I'll ask you again, should you not cut ties with this company?
I think he should do precisely what he wants.
That this is okay. I'll carry on.
I didn't say it was okay. You asked me as a grown-up rather than a sentimentally, emotively invested conversation. Do I think that Todd Boehly should do what I think he should do? I think he should do precisely what he wants to do.
As a Premier League club owner, and you were one with Palace in a different era, would you advocate that he should be allowed to do precisely what he wants to do?
Yeah, with his money.
It's his money, so he can do what he wants.
Yes, and suffer the consequences of it. There you are.
Really?
Yeah.
Even if that is at the expense of fans who want to get their hands on these tickets but can't go to the prices that they're going to.
He should be able to do precisely what he wants, and then reap the whirlwind and the consequences of any particular ramifications that come as a result of it. He shouldn't do what you tell him to do or what I tell him to do. He should be able to do what he wants to do, and then if there is a consequence for it, he'll have to get on with it, won't he?
Is this not an argument, Simon, about morality in the game?
Well,
that's the issue.
Well, that was the way I was framing it. I was framing it as, is this a legality issue and an ability to be able to stop him as a result of the consequences of his behaviour breaching the governance that he signed up to by being an owner? Or is it a morality argument? And with due respect to the morals in football, you can shove it up your backside. There isn't any. The morals in football exist only on the basis of what suits people at the particular time. If I'm on this radio show and I'm commenting on a particular football team and I'm saying how wonderful they are, their fans will love me. Right. A week later when I say something they don't like, they'll loathe me. So I'm sorry, the bottom line is that Todd Boehly, within reason,
right,
can do as he wishes.
Okay.
And if there is a consequence to it, and that consequence is based upon morals, well, one person's morals is a different person's set of standards.
He can do what he wishes, but should he?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're telling us all this morning, all of us who think this is an argument about morality, that we can stick our morals where the sun doesn't shine.
Shall I tell you why he can do as he wants? Because he earned that right when he wrote a cheque out.
All right, so he can do whatever he pleases here, regards vivid seats.
And if there is a consequence for it, he can also get the ramifications of that.
And he can screw over any average-going Chelsea fan.
Okay, well, we're not
in this country who can't get tickets.
We're not screwing over anyone. Chelsea,
oh, really?
Well, let's get it right. Chelsea have the right. Well, okay, Chelsea Football Club and its owners have the right to sell tickets to whomsoever they please. Right? The governance suggests that you've got to go through authorised channels in this country. Right? But they do have the right to refuse admission as well. So
it should be within the Premier League guidelines, though, shouldn't it?
If the Premier League guidelines allow for him to sell it through an unauthorised entity in America, that is the end of the conversation.
So you're okay that in Vivid Seats this morning, Thursday the 3rd of April, Chelsea-Tottenham, you can buy a seat, and it better be a good one, for £4,560. That's all right?
Yes.
That's okay.
It's called capitalism. If you're fool enough to want to pay it, then over to you. And by the way, from what I've understood, it ranges from something like 30 tickets to a game to 300 tickets a game. So we're talking about, at its very optimum level, less than 1%. At its lowest level, 0.07% of tickets. I'll pack it in.
But that's between 30 and 300 less people that can get into the game.
And that's the nature of the beast.
All right, okay. You got to just suck it up.
Yes.
Oh, I see. That's nice of you. Thank you.
Capitalism. Not you, because you'll probably get tickets for free from someone.
03717. No need for that. That was low. 03717 223344. Nick is a Chelsea fan. Nick, good morning. What is your take on this?
Hi guys. Good show. I phoned up 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I would agree with virtually everything Simon says. I've been a Chelsea fan for 50 odd years. It's sad. It's difficult to get tickets these days. But Todd Boehly, you're killing the atmosphere at the ground. You know, you've got a great product, but you're in danger of killing it. You know, I went to the Leicester game as a hospitality. Sat in some good seats. I'll give you that, but everyone around me, they weren't Chelsea fans. They were Americans. They were whatever. So from the revenue point of view, totally get it. From the atmosphere point of view, you're killing it. You're killing the atmosphere at the game.
Nick, I totally get what you're saying. So there you go, Simon. That's a byproduct of your capitalism argument.
Different arguments.
Oh, really?
Yeah, of course it is. The argument about atmosphere. Oh, that's a consequence. If you're prepared to do this and lose somebody at atmosphere, then you reap that whirlwind. But it's not the same argument as we're advancing about whether he could, should, or would be able to do it.
Right. And this is the right thing for English football, is it? It's okay. Kill the atmosphere in the name of capitalism.
That's an argument that's being advanced, and if it's an argument that it becomes more significant, then they'll have to review it. One person's perspective.
It's not just Chelsea tickets, so Vivid Seats has also been listing tickets for other clubs, including Liverpool's final home fixture of the season.
Shocking. For
around £20,000. And Neil's a Liverpool fan. And Neil, what's your take on this?
Hi there. I'm a Liverpool fan, author and solicitor, so I've got various angles on this. I think, for me, it's a conflict of interest on behalf of Todd Boehly as the owner of Chelsea Football Club. He's in the fitness and proper rules, and if it doesn't account for this type of conflict, then it should. Ultimately, he should have an obligation to be providing access to football for his fans of Chelsea Football Club and football fans. And he shouldn't be pumping up the cost of tickets for this type of benefit. It's a clear conflict. And I know Simon's directing it towards being a moral issue. It's not a moral issue. It becomes a legal issue when it's a conflict of interest in this way. And I think it has to be investigated. And then they have to look at, retrospectively, whether they've appropriately judged this owner as being fit and proper to run a club of the history and the prestige of Chelsea.
What's your response to that?
I didn't direct it towards a moral argument. I asked the question. Are we talking about a legal argument or are we talking about a moral argument? Because if we're talking about a moral argument, I'm not interested in it. If we're talking about a legal argument, then ultimately the consequences of his behaviour will have to land on him if indeed he's in breach of the governance. And if he isn't in breach of the governance, then the argument may well be, is the government fit for purpose? Governance per se. These are two different arguments.
As you look at this, Anil, do you feel that Boehly maybe should be best off cutting his ties with Vivid Seats?
I think that's obviously the immediate reaction should have been that, but we're dealing with an extremely stubborn person who doesn't listen to probably anybody or listen to what
how do you know that?
Argument is.
I mean, just out of curiosity, you're a solicitor and you'll have a balanced view on things. Yeah. How could you possibly know that?
I think I'm taking that off the basis of how he's run Chelsea up to this point. And in terms of throwing money at...
Well, that doesn't make you stubborn, that makes you have a vision.
Success, right?
That doesn't make you stubborn, it makes you have single-minded, which is the requirement of being a leader. That doesn't make you stubborn.
But it hasn't been successful up to now, has
Well, not
it?
everything's a race,
We're
is
at
it?
Chelsea at this
Sometimes,
point.
as you would appreciate, if you're building a legal practice, I don't expect you to get the biggest clients on the first day. You take a time to build up your business. He's got a blueprint, a vision, an idea, and if it takes him a period of time, unlike everybody else in football, he's prepared to accept that and build towards a more sustainable outcome of the vision that he has.
And
That doesn't make him stubborn.
More generally, Tony says football has been gentrified. Working class kids have no chance of affording being able to attend matches. It really is quite terrible. Do you agree with that?
Look, I earn a decent whack. I struggle to pay for Premiership tickets to take my children, who are Liverpool fans, to go and watch the games. It's astronomical how expensive it is to go to football. So, if a solicitor, my wife's a solicitor as well, if we struggle to pay for tickets, then God only knows how normal people...
Well, maybe get your club to release more season tickets then, because the season tickets tend to be of a very significantly reduced price, and the reasons why you perhaps can't get the tickets at a price that you may want is because Liverpool suppressed the amount of season tickets they sell.
Newcastle are going to be fairly hot ticket in town if they keep going in the direction they're going. Of course, they got the first domestic trophy in 70 long years. But there's a lot going on behind the scenes as well with Newcastle. They plan to hold contract talks with Alexander Isak at the end of the season, amidst major interest, we're told, from the likes of Arsenal and Liverpool. My colleague here at talkSPORT, chief football correspondent Alex Crook, joins us live. Alex, good morning. On Isak, what more do you know?
Yeah, good morning, Jim. As you say, massive summer ahead for Newcastle. Obviously, a lot is going to depend on whether they can get one of those Champions League places. They've got their trophy in the cabinet now, but I think it's all about getting a seat at Europe's top table. When it comes to Alexander Isak, I think he's someone we're going to be talking about right throughout the summer once that transfer window reopens. Not just interest in this country. You've mentioned there Liverpool and Arsenal, two potential suitors. I was told last night Barcelona as well as certainly paying close attention to Alexander Isak. The latest information I have, and I broke this on the notebook on the talkSPORT website yesterday, is that Liverpool are planning a very serious assault on Newcastle for Alexander Isak. There's a possibility they may be willing to include players going in the opposite direction. Not Darwin Núñez, as I know has been floated by some of our pundits. I'm told that is a non-starter. But one player that Newcastle and Eddie Howe do admire is Jarell Quansah. There's a possibility he could come into the conversations. And maybe Joe Gomez as well. He was very close to joining Newcastle last summer, with Anthony Gordon possibly going in the opposite direction. So I think they've got a fight on their hands, Newcastle, and getting that Champions League place may be decisive when it comes to the future of Alexander Isak.
And Simon, you've been saying in your columns that Newcastle have got a few things they need to look at. Not least in your column last week, for Newcastle to match the elite, they have to spend. To spend, they need turnover. To increase turnover, they need to spend to achieve better results, and around you go.
By that I mean, in order to be able to get to the top, they need to have turnovers as big as Liverpool, Manchester United, Manchester City, and they can't get it.
Right.
Because they're very restricted from doing it, and the only way they can get it is through sporting attainment, and they can't get sporting attainment because they can't buy players because they're governed by PSR. So around and around they go.
So it's a vicious circle, in
so
other
the
words.
decision is, the fortunate thing for them is I don't think people have got deep enough pockets to buy Isak. I don't know what contract they've got him under. Alex, how long is he under contract for?
I think I'm right in saying he's under contract until 2028, so certainly Newcastle will hold a lot of the cards in that respect.
Newcastle got some balance in this conversation. So anybody wants Isak, they're going to have to pay for him.
Yeah.
And the legacy clubs, I don't think they've got the dough, because if they want to buy Isak, they're going to have to pay north of 125 million quid. Barcelona haven't got the dough to do it. I'm not even sure that Madrid have. And they can shuffle their pack around and people are going to have to go. Now, whether players are going to be thrown into the mix, what do you want to sell Isak for to Liverpool so you can get Gomez? You're losing a forward to replace him with a defender. Right, that's not the answer to that particular question, and I think Newcastle might have some safety in the fact that the market might not be there, but Isak will play a part in this, because who knocks on the door for Newcastle and how hard they knock? A legacy football club. With due respect to Newcastle and their passionate, wonderful fans, if one of the legacy clubs come, you're going to be so disappointed when your player turns around and goes, well, I might have an ear for this.
So, Alex, I wonder how hard a knock on the door there may or may not be for one Tyler Dibbling. Are we right in this, that Southampton are ready to demand a fee of more than £100 million for Tyler Dibbling?
Well, that's double what they were quoting clubs in January, but I know last time they were relegated, Southampton drove a hard bargain, got decent money from Chelsea for the likes of Romeo Lavia and West Ham for their captain James Ward-Prowse. But I do find this valuation a little bit fanciful, to be honest. You're talking about a player, very talented young player, a lot of interest in him. Tottenham, Manchester United, just two of the clubs who are keeping a close eye on him. But he's only played a handful of games in the Premier League. One of the reasons Southampton are demanding this huge fee is they're comparing it to when Jack Grealish went from Aston Villa to Manchester City and when Declan Rice went from West Ham to Arsenal. Now, those two players had a much bigger portfolio in terms of what they'd achieved in the Premier League. He's out of contract at the end of next season. Last I heard, he wasn't particularly keen on signing a new deal. He wasn't happy with the offer that was on the table. So I would be surprised if Southampton get anywhere near this figure.
25 appearances in the Premier League, 100 million. Is it a case if you don't ask, you don't get?
Yeah, I mean, it's fairy tale economics, isn't it? I mean, you're not going to get £100 million for a player like this. He's a good player. I wrote about him in a column a few weeks ago. But he's not. He doesn't feature all the time under this current manager. Got a bag full of talent, but there's not £100 million. He's probably struggling to get a £50 million.
What news can you bring us in Christian Romero at Tottenham, Alex?
Yeah, this is one to keep a close eye on throughout the summer as well. He's been linked with Real Madrid in the past. Doesn't look like they're going to follow up that interest at this moment in time. I think Dean Howson at Bournemouth is their primary target. Again, a very talented young defender. Atletico Madrid, I think, more likely. Obviously, Diego Simeone, a fellow Argentine, I'm told is a big admirer. He's going to have 2 years left on his contract, Romero, come the summer. So that's the crunch point for clubs, isn't it? When they either have to cash in or try and get him to sign a new deal. If they don't qualify for the Champions League, and their only route to that now is by winning the Europa League, then I think Romero may well push for this move. I'm told he's open to it.
I mean, he is one genuine winner, isn't he? Romero, World Cup winner.
Yeah, he's also a bloody pest. Got too much to say for himself. About to be put back in line by his own manager because he talks out of turn about what people should and shouldn't do. And half the time, a couple of years ago, he couldn't be bothered to put it out there on the pitch. He was under-aroused by things and he had to be pulled back in line. His discipline record doesn't stand up to scrutiny. Bloody good player.
Was there not an element of truth in what he said the other day?
Well, if you're playing towards a gallery, I'm sure you'll find the elements of truth in it. Yeah, I mean, when he's operating at the highest level, which he hasn't always done at Tottenham, then maybe he can sing that song.
Yeah, he just wants a bit of ambition. Wants to be shown a bit of ambition. It would appear.
Well, yeah.
Wants a club to show him it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right, but I don't think it's right for the public domain. I don't think you need to play that particular song in the public domain. You have to have a bit of loyalty.
Yeah. He apologised for the comments that he made, having said that.
Did he mean them then? If he didn't mean them, why did he apologise?
What about Onana at Manchester United? Is he out of there?
Well, there's certainly interest from Saudi, and I think if he could, Ruben Amorim, I think, would like to bring his own number one. Onana, very much an Eric Ten Hag signing. Good goalkeeper at times, but he makes a lot of mistakes as well. I was told yesterday that actually if it's clear that he doesn't have a future as number one, then Onana would be willing to entertain the idea of a move to Saudi Arabia. And I think maybe United might be looking at a young British goalkeeper, maybe someone like James Trafford at Burnley, who's got a lot of suitors this summer, because obviously bringing in an English goalkeeper helps with the quota of homegrown players as well.
One family, the Fisher family, Spencer, may not be in the mood to wish you happy 50th birthday. You'll remember Johnny Fisher climbed off the floor and edged a controversial split decision over Dave Allen. We were there. I was sitting beside you in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. It seemed tough on Allen because it was thought largely that he'd done enough to win it. He didn't. Fisher won on 2 cards, with a third judge picking Allen as the winner. This was you in action that night with a certain Gareth A. Davis.
That is a disgraceful decision. There's no way that the first 4 rounds were Johnny Fisher's. The 5th round was clearly a 10-8. And then after that, Dave Allen did the better work in almost every round. I do not see those scores being fair, I'm afraid.
Listen, them scores are diabolical. That was not a close contest. There was one winner in that contest. Yes, Johnny Fisher started well. Yes, he won the first 4 rounds. He lost the 5th round 10-8, and he never won another round going in then. Maybe he won 1, maybe he nicked 1 round, but that does not win him the fight. I love Johnny Fisher as a person. I love what he's done. I love what he's built up there. But there was one winner in that contest, and that was Dave Allen.
But that wasn't...
Wow. So on and on it went. So Johnny got it, and you fellas were not happy at all with the verdict. And then Johnny's dad, who goes by the name of Big John, entered the fray.
No bashing out. I totally respect anyone's opinion who thought Dave won the fight. But the way you and Spencer went over the top, I thought you were serious journalists. You showed how incapable you are of actually reporting
Did
on
Johnny
a
win
proper
that fight, John?
Sorry?
Did Johnny win that fight?
He won the fight. Yeah, I watched it back. He won round 1 to 4, round 10, and round 7. You could have called it for Johnny. So for you to say it was a robbery and disgusting,
I said
Gareth,
I thought
Gareth,
the
you was welcome in my house before. You'll never be welcome in my house again because I think you acted like a complete and utter disgrace. All right, and I'll tell you to your face because I'm a man. I'm not holding back. Anyone can say they think Dave won the fight.
Yeah.
Dave's team themselves said it wasn't a robbery, and you're shouting out things like that. I've lost all respect for you. People used to tell me, don't respect Gareth Davis. I've said, no,
well, that's fine. Right. That's fine.
Totally lost all respect.
Okay, that's fine.
Never,
okay, you go and have your dinner and we'll get on with the interview. Thanks, John.
Never come and see me again and never ask for my advice in anything ever again.
I don't need your advice. Thank you
very much. Sir. You do, because you have not got a clue.
Woof, bosh. That was that. Do not darken the Fisher household door again. Then Johnny Fisher has been speaking about it just in recent days. This is him for the first time on that topic.
I don't need to put them right. That's the first time I've watched that, actually. And they did fuel a lot of the hysteria around the fight. It was a close fight. I watched it. I won rounds 1 to 4. I won round 6. I think Dave Allen even admitted that, and I won round 10 as well. So by that scorecard, I win by 1 round. Is Gareth Davis a boxing judge? No, he's not. He's a commentator, he's a pundit. Spencer Oliver, got respect for that man, what he's done in boxing and what's happened to him as well. I don't want to talk ill of anyone who does that, but they're not boxing judges and they didn't judge the fight.
How upsetting did you find it?
The people that matter are the people that watch the fight and judge the fight, and they scored it 1 round to me.
You've been in a boxing ring, you're giving absolutely everything. You know, you've been awarded the fight, you know. People have got different opinions, but how upsetting was it to hear that sort of criticism?
It wasn't upsetting because I get paid to fight. I got paid handsomely to do that boxing match, and the beautiful thing is I get to do it again in front of my home crowd at the Copper Box Arena, and that's a beautiful thing. So if you're a boxer, you're going to have opinions. It's very, very hard to take sometimes as a professional athlete who's getting punched in the head for a living, and yeah, it can be hard to take, but for me, it's a good thing because I get to do it again, and I get to do it in front of the people in East London.
So when you hear all that, Spencer, I mean, what you said that night in Riyadh, would you say again if you were asked?
Absolutely.
How did you think the fight unfolded?
Listen, we may have gone strong in the heat of the moment there on, you know, the diabolical decision. That word might have been strong, but listen, there was only one winner in that contest, and that was not Johnny Fisher. It was Dave Allen. Dave Allen won the fight. Yes, Johnny won the first 4 rounds, and there's an argument he didn't win another round after that. If he got 1, then he may have got 1. But with the 10-8 round where he got knocked down, would still make him losing the fight by a point. So he lost a fight by either a point, possibly even 2 points, maybe even 3. But whatever it is, he lost the fight. I understand his dad is emotionally attached, and so he's gonna be upset with our comments.
No, it's nothing personal.
It was not personal.
No.
It was actually at the judges and their scoring because it was diabolical. The wrong person was awarded the fight.
Well, we're saying
thankfully he's given.
Boxers can be very, very thin-skinned.
Well, they can be very thin-skinned, and I understand to some extent why they are, because as Johnny Fisher explained, it's those that go in a ring. They have this nobility, this machismo-based industry that is based upon being able to fight. It's when other people start getting offended on the sidelines and coming in when they're too penny, like Hearn chipping in with his observations about the fact they expected better. You know, your mates are. Spencer's observations, I think both he and Gareth A. Davis over-egged the pudding. I don't think it was disgraceful or diabolical, right? But we use superlatives all the time. If someone turned around and said about Johnny Fisher, you are a marvellous fighter, I don't think he's a marvellous fighter. I think he's a good fighter, right? He's not a marvellous fighter, but he wouldn't complain about that. And the childish reaction that's been offered, I was disappointed with our guys because they allow things to be said in the studio. It should have been pushed back on. Hearn said that, you know, your mates are. The other day he was talking about Colin Hart being a journalist that said things he didn't like. But because Colin Hart's passed away, he wanted to be all reverential and respectful. When Spencer says something that he doesn't like, he's not entitled to say it because he's his mate, and he shouldn't be saying this about Johnny Fisher. Grow up, the lot of you. Grow up. And Johnny Fisher's dad, I don't know where he needs to come into the equation. I mean, I'm all for piling on Gareth A. Davis because I don't think much of him myself. But the fact of the matter is Johnny Fisher's father turning it into a 4-act play. The hysteria that's been exhibited is by those clowns. Spencer said something in a moment, it's been forgotten. Everyone's forgotten about it. The only people who haven't forgotten about it is you lot making a 4-act play out of it. You've got your rematch, you're getting paid more money than you're actually worth. You're not a great fighter, with due respect to Johnny. You've got an opportunity in life.
I mean, you always said it. You always said that this was going to come about, and it is coming about. It's being reported the Premier League is exploring the possibility of adopting a two-pronged media deal from 2029 onwards, with a direct-to-consumer Netflix-style model adopted in overseas markets, and back here, the rights remaining with the traditional broadcasters such as Sky Sports and TNT Sports. But you always said it. They should do their own thing. Well, they're halfway there with this announcement.
Yeah, I mean, you saw that play when I said it about 5 or 6 years ago and christened it the Netflix of football, because it was obvious to me that if you've got the content, that Netflix at the time didn't have its own content delivery mechanism, yet was delivering huge revenues, not profits at the time. And the market value of Netflix is about 250 billion, something ridiculous of that nature, on the market cap. And you look at the Premier League and what it has available to it, and how many potential subscribers it could have, and how many people would watch it, and what the revenues could be, would dwarf the current broadcast deals. Now, clearly you saw this play with the change of direction around the relationship with IMG, because IMG were responsible for the effective contribution of broadcasting rights and content delivery for overseas broadcast deals for the Premier League. That deal has been brought in-house now. So the relationship with IMG has been severed. It was inevitable they were going to do something with that, and they'll do something with the domestic rights in the end, because sooner rather than later, like it or loathe it, Sky aren't going to be able to afford the broadcast rights. If Sky continue with the amount of churn and loss of subscribers that they've got because their product is nowhere near what it used to be, they'll find themselves in an uneconomic position. If you look at some of the forecasts, industry forecasts, talking about what's happening to Sky, they won't be able to afford a broadcast deal.
Yeah, but its coverage of live football is still right up there.
Doesn't matter if you haven't got an audience that's particularly interested in paying the price point for it, because they've got piracy left, right and centre, and the value of it potentially is being hyped up by the requirements that football have of it. You're going to have to reach a point where you're going to have to cut your cloth accordingly. And if you can't afford it, because the current broadcast deals, was it worth 1.7 billion per year that Sky have to pay, something along those lines, maybe a little bit less. And if you've got a declining subscriber base because you've got piracy attacking it, also because your price point has reached the point where you're jamming it down the throat of the consumer, who doesn't want to pay that price point either, which is the reason behind piracy, and also people get fed up with some of your broadcasting quality, then you're going to, and some of the messages you wish to impart, and some of the people that you have imparting it, you'll reach a point where the audience will be less and less, and the economics will be less and less viable, and then that's when the Premier League will then look at what it can do about the historic legacy rights over the broadcast library that's been there for the last 30-odd years. I mean, Sky's been responsible, no doubt. Murdoch, it took an Australian to decide the potential of English football. Ironic, isn't it?
Yeah.
And some brilliant businessmen like Sugar and David Dean to see the opportunity that the Premier League become in conjunction with Sky.
But with that in mind, considering the likes of Sky way back 1992, kick-starting English football's trajectory to stratospheric levels, does the Premier League owe the traditional broadcasters anything?
You mean Sky?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, because they did it for love. Sky made a fortune out of football, and so has football made a fortune out of Sky.
It's been good for both parties, though.
Totally, but some marriages don't last forever, and if Sky aren't able to afford the cost implications of the ever burgeoning demands of football, then football will have a choice to make. It's never gone backwards. The only deal that's gone backwards on broadcast terms was the deal that I got when we got promoted in 2004. It's the first and only broadcast deal that went backwards. Every other deal from 92 to 97, 97 to 2001, 2001 to 2004. 2004 was when Palace got promoted. The first broadcast deal that went backwards between 2004 2007.
What do you mean went backwards?
Got less money than the previous deal. That should have been.
Was because you were involved?
That should have been a telltale sign, wasn't it? But there on afterwards, it's gone and gone and gone and gone and gone. And then what's happened, of course, is the overseas deals have systematically become bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and now on a par with the broadcast deals and the domestic rights.
Yeah.
Well, they should be, by the way, because you're selling to many, many regions around the world. And the irony of it is, if you're watching Premier League football in America or Australia, you pay a fraction of the price that the people in the UK pay for a product which is theirs.
Yeah. If we're talking about traditional broadcasts and broadcasters, do you think Match of the Day falls by the wayside sometime soon?
I hope not. I don't think so. If we're going to run this...
What's the one you want to kill? Football Focus?
No, it's killed itself. It doesn't need my help for that. It's just put rubbish on the screen presented by rubbish people. And there's your outcome. You can see the audience halved because it spends its entire time telling people about their sexuality at 12 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. The bottom line is if Match of the Day goes down the parameters of what this idiot controller is suggesting that it should be doing, they're basically saying, less game, more speech. Less clips, more commentary. I mean, have you ever heard such balderdash? People do not tune in to Match of the Day to listen to the monotonous
I think
drone of
Mark
Alan
Chapman
Shearer.
even suggested that the other night at the
Well done,
SGAs
Mark.
that's nonsense.
I mean, I wasn't always a big fan of Mark Chapman's, but I've become a bigger admirer of him recently because I think he's a first-class presenter.
Do you?
Yeah, I do. I didn't.
He doesn't like you.
I couldn't care less.
Anyway.
I wrote a lovely column about him and his little gang of 3 that decided to vacate the building when Lineker was having his moment a couple of years ago with a match of the day.
Yeah. Mark, if you're out there,
but
I know you like Sammy.
The fact is, is that no one in their right mind would possibly suggest that the viewing public, in fact, apparently the Vox Pop that was done suggested the viewing public doesn't want to hear more chat, want to see the clips and less chat. Yet this clown is suggesting that the match of the day needs to morph into more commentary, less clips.
This is a controller you're talking about.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, I forget the guy's name because it was so incidental that I almost put it into the file under miscellaneous. Because if they're going to do that, then match of the day, match of the day was so important to football because without match of the day, Sky would never have got the traction. Part of the deal, the reason why Sky got it is because they were prepared to give a highlights package to match of the day and keep it on terrestrial TV. So match of the day was absolutely fundamental to the value of the increase in opportunity for the broadcasters like Sky to be successful. So to diminish it and turn it into something that's not valuable would be a fool's errand. I hope it doesn't. And, you know, as far as turning it into something that resembles Football Focus, if they do, then they'll destroy it, like destroy Football Focus.
I think that fella's name that you couldn't remember is the BBC chairman, Shamir Shah.
Yeah, a buffoon.
Him. Oh, that's nice. I've a rough idea what both of you might make of this. When it comes to Anthony Joshua and who might be next, Jake Paul threw his name in the ring. Here he is.
I want to fight Anthony Joshua, exclusive, because I know that I will beat Anthony Joshua's. I know
he just got knocked out, right?
Yeah. He doesn't have a chin, and he has no skill, and he's stiff. And I love you, Anthony. We're friends. All this, but I want to fight you.
Could he? And would he win?
He's deluded if he thinks he'd beat Anthony Joshua. That's for sure. You know, if you look at Francis Ngannou and the way that Anthony Joshua dealt with him, a non-boxer coming from a different discipline, well, this kid really is, there's a level in boxing. He's done well for himself and he's marketed himself very, very well. And that's exactly what he's doing right now, by the way.
Yeah.
He's called out everybody and anybody. Wasn't he calling out Canelo for ages and talking about wanting to box Canelo? Then Cole Froch come into the conversation as well. Now it's Anthony Joshua and... Listen, it's marketing, all marketing. Anything that Jake Paul does, he's sort of like trying to capture that imagination, calling everyone out. But let's be real on this. Anthony Joshua would absolutely ice Jake Paul inside a round. If he made it to round 2, that's a moral victory for me.
Seriously?
Absolutely.
You think the same?
Yeah, it's not a serious conversation, is it? I mean, how did he get on, Jake Paul, against Tommy Fury?
He lost, didn't he?
I mean, come on. The fact of the matter is that the tragedy of this is that you then get the other side of the conversation, which is Hearn and perhaps Anthony Joshua will entertain the conversation just for the purpose of engaging with a YouTube phenomenon which gets people interested. And Paul Smith was saying the other day, and I like Paul Smith a lot, easiest 30 seconds work. Go in there, get paid X amount of tens of millions of pounds for nothing, quite frankly, nothing. Because he's not Anthony Joshua. The only thing I'd like to see is him knock him into the next life.
I know, but when you talk about eyes on it, the second ever biggest pay-per-view fight, McGregor-Mayweather.
And what was that?
This won't be fun. This would be similar.
Yeah, it had no credibility behind the actual spectacle, did it? I mean, Mayweather carried him around the ring for 10 rounds. I mean, it wasn't a great spectacle. And Anthony Joshua doesn't... I mean, the thing about what Paul Smith was saying is if someone offered me 5-10 million quid to get in there, I could beat him now. I could train for 2 weeks and beat him now. And I haven't fought for 5-6 years. But Anthony Joshua doesn't need the money. Doesn't need the money.
Yeah.
So for me, I think the credibility conversation is Anthony Joshua is a blue chip individual in terms of the public's perception of him. Whether he's got knocked out by Daniel Dubois and lost to Usyk and had a few outbursts in the past, incidental, he's still copper-bottomed, a blue chip promoted sports star.
There's a fight fan. Why are we still talking about AJ? He doesn't deserve a top 5 fight. Doesn't deserve Parker, Fury, Dubois, Usyk. Give him Boehly, then retire him.
In the marketing world, in the world where the money is generated, he's blue chip. He'll be under no illusions. And he doesn't need to do this. He doesn't need to be involved. This is not blue chip. This is Jerry Cottle's big tent.
See if you get it right, Spence. Who's he going to fight next, AJ?
AJ will fight Joseph Parker next for the WBO title.
Simple as, from Birthday Boy. You heard it first. it's come to our attention, Simon, the fast approaching Club World Cup, which, as we know, is going to be taking place. Much maligned in the US in the close season. The two English clubs involved, Chelsea and Manchester City.
Yes.
But then we find out that the winners of the Club World Cup this summer could stand to earn.
Can you get tickets on Vivid for the Chelsea games?
£97 million. That's what the winners could earn of this thing. A group stage win will net you £1.5 million, £5.8 million for reaching the last 16, £10.2 million for reaching the quarter-finals, £16.3 million for reaching the semi-finals, and £31 million for reaching and winning the final. But that could all roll up, because there's £1 billion in the pot shared out between the participants. The actual winner outright could earn up to £97 million.
Yes.
Winning the FA Cup this season bags you £4 million.
Yes.
Where is this going? I mean,
to a Super League.
Will prize money like this for the FIFA Club World Cup create an unhealthy imbalance within leagues here?
What more than the Champions League does for the clubs that qualify for it? I mean, it is what it is.
But this is just, the Champions League maybe, but this is just 7 games.
I know.
The new format of the Champions League is a hell of a lot more than that.
And this is the reason why they're doing it. And this is the reality of it. I mean, I think the basic minimum is somewhere between 25 and 30 million quid for turning up, being part of the 32 teams that are in there. Maybe slightly less, but certainly between 20 and 25 million they're going to get as a minimum. On that basis, why would you not go? That's why they're going. And that's why the club players need to shut their traps, because it's going to be landing in their pay packets and landing in the club's abilities to be able to buy better players, which will increase their opportunity and their material worth. This is the reality. This tournament attracts significant wealth to these football clubs. And the challenge is how does that get managed into the system?
Yeah, I mean, the 97 million that, say, Man City or Chelsea, if they're lucky enough to win it, isn't going to go into the players' pockets.
Of course it is.
Well, how do you know that?
Because player wages...
97 million.
Sure.
Well done, boys. Split that up.
Okay.
No way.
So let's work it out. Man City's turnover is 700 million quid and their wage bills 350 to 400 million quid. So let's say 50% is going to go in their wages then.
I mean... When you look at it, you mentioned the Super League.
And the other part will be transfers.
You think this is the early start to the rebirth of the Super League?
Well, the Super League's not gone away, and it will come back. It's always going to come back. It's going to have people are going to have to get their heads around the reality of it. It's about what happens to English football as a result of it. And this idea that the Super League that was proposed was some outrageous, awful thing, are people getting hysterical? The only thing that was wrong with it was the meritocracy element. And once you remove the meritocracy element off the table, and what was wrong with it? Of course it leads to European Super League and Super Leagues per se. And whether people like that or they don't like it, the broadcast side of things do like it, and that's where it's going to land. I'm not saying I'm for it or against it. Tournaments drive money. They drive money. The World Cup is going to deliver $15 billion to FIFA. So is there any surprise that the domestic game is going to deliver $1 billion worth of income available to the clubs for a tournament?
But as we've said here, like Newcastle, how on earth are they going to compete if either one of Chelsea or City come back with 97 million in their hips?
Well, first of all, Chelsea and City will have bigger wages at this moment in time, so they probably need some of these elements, and they've spent a bit more money, and they've got bigger depreciations and amortizations to carry. But there's the answer to the question. Pack it in with this stupid nonsense around PSR. Profit and sustainability. How much more sustainable do you want to get than a nation state that's got so much money under its sovereign wealth fund, which effectively owns your football club, despite the charade that it doesn't, right? What is more sustainable than the owners of Newcastle being able to build their football club to compete with the football clubs that are already there? That is why profit and sustainability is a load of old pony. It was created for a reason, and that reason has clearly become evident, which is the cabal of football clubs that are already there are going to stay there, and the clubs like Newcastle, that's too bad. You might get a chance in 15 years if you've got the wherewithal to stay motivated for 15 years as an ownership model that didn't buy Newcastle to win the League Cup.
What I would say is that this close season, of course, when the season comes to an end, there ain't no Euros and there ain't no World Cup, but there is the Club World Cup, and Infantino has been absolutely raving about it.
Football united the world through the World Cup, the Men's World Cup since 1930, the Women's World Cup since 1991, but what was missing was something for club football to determine who is the best club in the world. We have it now, the FIFA Club World Cup, which starts a new era in club football. It's about inclusivity. It's about bringing clubs from all over the world, the 32 best clubs and best players from all over the world, together in the United States from 15th of June to 13th of July 2025 to determine which one is truly the best in the world.
Pretty soon we're going to know. In terms of prestige...
No, it's about money.
But here's the thing, in terms of prestige and value, is this Club World Cup going to become bigger than the Champions League?
Depends if everyone keeps on taking a pee over it, which is what people have been doing for the last 6 months. And people keep bitching and whining about it, when ultimately most people would be delighted to be the inaugural winners of the tournament. And if it can be given attraction and cachet, why wouldn't it be valuable? I remember years and years ago when Liverpool played Flamengo in a game and Zico was playing for Flamengo, and it was billed as something really spectacular. This has now been extrapolated up because it was the champions of Europe against the champions of South America, and it happened to be Flamengo. And of course we didn't see it on terrestrial television because it wasn't the day and age that we live in now. So with the reality of what football's become, which is a superstar sport now, beyond all comparison, beyond everything and everyone, in every sport, including the much heralded NFL and their $113 billion deal in their country, which is 6 times the size of the UK.
Yeah.
The bottom line is that, yes, it will become prestigious. Motivation for these clubs is not to be there to win it, really, for some of these clubs. It's the enormous returns that are going to be gotten as a result of it. And that's why you've got this tournament, which is now paying more money or significantly... you've got 13... How many games to win the Champions League now? 15? I think it's 15. You've got 15 games that pays you 130 million. And I have to compare it to the Premier League. To win the Premier League, you pay 38 games, you get 170 million.
Yeah.
Right? So now that's gone down even closer now. The ratio's gone down to... You get half the money for winning the Premier League for playing 20% of the games. So if you're fortunate enough to be good enough to play in the Club World Cup, World Championships, you have to play 7 games to get half the amount of money that you get to play 38 games to win the Premier League. Have a think about the scale of that and what's happening.
I mean, the winner of the Club World Cup, if it's Chelsea or if it's Man City, isn't going to care very much about the FA Cup from this point onwards, is it?
Well, they should. And they should be made to, because there's
£4 million to win it.
Well, but the protected characteristics...
but you keep on saying it's all about money. If it's all about money, the FA Cup's like...
But this tournament is. Absolutely, it's all about money. So my reaction was to what he was saying, the prestige and the idea that this is the greatest tournament. No, it's not. It's a very affluent tournament. If there was 2 and 6 on the table, no one would care about the prestige of it. The argument would rage, well, what are we going here for in a close season? I'm not going here. We had Ancelotti coming out with his load of old nonsense that he got put back in his box for by Madrid, which was, we get paid £20 million a game. There's no way we're going over to America to play in this tournament. Off you go, Ancelotti. You're going to do as you're told.